future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
There we go. The audience finally showed up.
Yeah.
And so did we. Welcome to Dr. Judy, WTF, which is What the Freud, here on UBN Radio Network. I'm your host, Walt Lusk, and of course we have the illustrious Dr. Judy Rosenberg in the house today, as every day. And we've got a special show today. As usual, we're going to compare life coaching versus psychology, counseling, therapy. And we all going to, as our segment, we're going to shrink a very, very, very popular song that's out right now in our Shrunk The Tune section, so stay tuned. It's the Adele song that came out. Hasn't even been out yet, but we're going to shrink it. And
wait, hasn't it been out? I've been
no, her
listening.
album's not her album's not out yet, but they're of course playing the single. Yeah.
Okay.
Hello.
I'm not up to date.
That's the
But
name.
you updated me.
That's the name of the song.
Oh, okay. Thank you. But I didn't know there was a whole album.
Oh, yeah,
that
she's a whole
wasn't
album coming out very
released.
shortly.
Okay.
And it's a call-in show as well, folks, and you can call us at area code 323-843-2826. If you have a good story, bad story, even just a story about your experience with either a life coach, success coach and such, or therapy with a real therapist, licensed psychologist and such, call in. And if you want to listen to us, you can peel us on Stitcher, iTunes, Speaker, and, of course, here at ubnradio.com. And that's about it. We did a show some time ago on the Great American Smokeout. And next week is the Great American Smokeout. It's actually the fourth Thursday of the month in November. It'll be the 19th. And Dr. Judy, as a coach, has written
Not a
book,
coach.
Habit Makers and Habit Breakers, which is available on Amazon. You can pull it.
Actually, I have to correct you on that.
And it's on your site, too.
Dr. Judy's Habit Breakers Stop Smoking Plan. It's on the site at www.drjudy.
WTF.com.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, and
And
it's
Amazon.
there for smokers who want to quit smoking. It's a full
It's a
treatment
it's
plan
it's a complete program.
for
It's
you,
turnkey.
and it is, and it you can use it with or without an e-cigarette also, and you can do it gradual withdrawal or cold turkey. So that's for those of you who are wanting to participate in the Great American Smokeout and you want to smoke out.
Right. That was started back in the mid-'70s as a way to not smoke for 24 hours and then take that money that you would spend for cigarettes during that day and donate it to your local school. And the goal, of course, was that schools win, and you just might win if you smoke and quit. Continue, right? One day at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the Great American Smokeout, and we did a
So
show many moons ago.
So yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this topic because people
Yeah.
come to see me, obviously, because I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and many people have been through therapy, life coaching, and so on and so forth. So life coaching is a profession, and there are many people who are life coaches. And today we're going to describe the boundaries where life coaching begins, where therapy and life coaching veer off, and when to seek help from a life coach, when to seek help from a psychologist. And so I want to start with my own life coaching experiences.
We're not here to pick on life coaching. We're just here to sort of compare and contrast.
And to delineate.
Yes.
Okay. So I did use a life coach in certain areas of my life. For example, I did use a life coach to help me to start exercising. And that was a positive experience because the person really knew what he was doing. And he really was an expert in his field. However, when it came to dating, I did use a life coach for dating. It was a disastrous experience because the life coach was advising me to date somebody who really had a lot of characterological flaws, and she did not pick up on that. And so it was a really, really bad idea for me to be taking her advice.
Was that projection on their part?
I don't know what it was, but looking back at that experience, I paid a lot of money out to somebody who was encouraging me to date somebody that really didn't have a lot of mental health. So that was not a good thing. So I do want to, I know, I hate it when that happens. Anyway, I do want call-ins, please, because I'd like to know from you. I know that many people out there are life coaches and are excellent life coaches, and this is not to take away from your profession at all. However, I have some pretty strong feelings about when not to see a life coach, and so we will we'll go right into it.
Dive in it.
Yeah.
Well, I thought I'd start here as life coaches and counseling psychologists both help people to live better and live more fulfilled lives. While the nature of these positions are similar, the techniques and viewpoints of the practitioner differs. Life coaches are coaches. They push and motivate their clients to do more and to be better. Counseling psychologists, on the other hand, help clients through therapy to resolve issues and fix problems that are holding them back.
Right.
So there is a difference. And then another definition is we are not coaches, are not mentors, counselors, or consultants. We don't direct, advise, analyze, judge, or look into the past, which is a big thing that psychologists do.
Right.
All our questions should be open-ended and not leading or suggestive.
Okay, so I want to take a look at that sentence, that we don't look into the past. Now,
Well, that's coaching.
Right.
Okay.
Coaching does not look into the past. Now, if you have a person that's relatively healthy and has done their psychotherapy, I think it's appropriate that they now move forward into the future. And this is given that they don't have any personality disorders, that they don't have any mood disorders, that their points of resistance about moving into the future have nothing to do with the past, or at least have had their past resolved. So under those circumstances, go ahead, march into the future. I personally find that people who do not do well moving forward have a resistance because they have issues from the past. So I don't see how one gets around a thing like that.
Well, yeah, they say your life coaches are not counselors or therapists, of course. They can't diagnose or treat patients because they can't even have patients, actually.
Right. So I have a problem with that, Walt. And the problem that I have with that is that if somebody is not moving forward for whatever reason, if they're fiscally irresponsible, if they're going through a series of relationships and they're choosing unhealthy people, then it's really important that the person that you're working with knows how to pick up on these things and diagnose these things. And if you're a life coach and you do pick up on personality disorders and just have a basic knowledge of that, then I suggest that you refer that person to a therapist, because that would be a case where their past is absolutely blocking their future.
Right.
And their core belief about themselves, which comes from the past, is interfering and cracking the lens of perception on their here and now. And so I think that's a really important distinction to make.
Well, when you go way back to the definition of coaching, became in the Oxford Dictionary back in 1830.
Okay.
And it basically was slang for a tutor who carries, quote unquote, a student through an exam.
Okay.
So in other words, very specific task. In other words, there's an event, an exam that was occurring, and the coach was to kind of carry them and help them through that process, right?
Yes.
So that's where coaching came from. And of course, it's been expanded way beyond that. But that's where it started.
Right. And you know, I've been searching through the web, and not to mention any names at all, but I see coaches that claim to be relationship experts and parenting experts and experts in all kinds of areas that just seem to overlap too much with the field of psychology. And although many of these peoples may have BAs or master's degrees in in counseling of some sort, there is a really interesting place here where if you don't study the basics of child development, if you don't study the basics of why core relationship issues get why they come up and why people sabotage each other, then I think that the coaching is going to be really, really limited at best. So I think that a responsible coach would take the time to learn a little bit more about attachment theory and a little bit more about developmental psychology.
Yeah, but that has to deal more with the past.
Well,
and coaching, as we've got a lot of issues to compare and contrast, so we'll just dive in.
Yeah.
Folks, the thing is, for example, Deepak Chopra, right? He's a doctor, and he's a licensed physician, and he can delve in that world, but he's also written books and whatnot, if you will, of sorts, has delved into the coaching world, if you will, so he can actually cross the line and go on both sides of the fence.
Right.
And that's the advantage of being a therapist, a psychiatrist,
so once
and
you're
such.
a psychologist,
then all bets are off.
Right.
You can do whatever heck you want.
You can go into that arena.
But the converse is not true in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
Yeah, and obviously one of the things is the psychology. Well, in terms of therapists. Well, let's get. I'm real big with definitions. There are basically 8 different types of therapists. You've got the psychiatrist, psychologist, marriage, family, child therapist, which used to be an MFCC, marriage and family child counselor. You have a professional clinical counselor, a clinical psychologist, mental health counselor, clinical social worker, which of course is also an LCSW, licensed clinical social worker. Mm-hmm. So those are the ones that have licenses, and they've got malpractice insurance, and they got boards to deal with and whatnot. Coaching, it goes anywhere from life coaching to leadership coaching, business, financial, personal, executive, career, entrepreneurial, and health.
And do they need to have at least a BA or a
No,
master's
they just take anywhere from a 6-hour course, 6-month course, and they're quote certified by whatever entity they've gotten it from, and boom, they're a coach.
And I also know of people who take a long time to learn life coaching and go to school and bother to delve into it on a deeper level. However, one thing that still limits them is that there's no regulation for coaches.
No, they regulate. There's a federation that's got about 17,000 coaches in it as an entity, but it's more just a sort of an entity that they're a member of to kind of validate their existence, as opposed to having it being a regulating body.
Right.
One said here, counseling with a psychologist is more about healing. And coaching is more about, the trail of dreams, or again, looking more forward. And healing, obviously, in many instances, is going back and looking at the cause, attachment theory and such, to see how that would have occurred, so that you can address the challenge and move forward.
I remember when I started helping people, I owned a clinic called Habit Breakers. It was a stop smoking and weight control center, and I was a coach at that time. I had a BA in psychology from UCLA, and that was it. I had no master's and no PhD, and people would ask me if I can help them with their depression and anxiety and whatnot, and I had to say no. We have to stick to the smoking and looking at your behaviors in regards to your eating, and that was all I could do. So there was a scope of limitations. So it's just really important that as consumers of services, you look at the scope of limitations of your practitioners that you're hiring. You want to know what kind of a background educational level they've attained. And you also want to know, in case they misadvise you, what recourse you have, because I can literally have my license removed if I'm unethical, or if I am.
And there's a plethora of things that you can do, Dr. Judy.
With my clients, right?
And if you're overly physical with them, even not sleeping, then that could cross a boundary as well and be an issue.
Right. Yeah. So it obviously much more regulated, and also we have to take continuing education units. So we're always on top of things in terms of our profession.
To validate your license.
And we have to validate our license. And so I, as a consumer, would personally, unless it was specific as exercise, or I really wanted a nutritionist to help me with my eating, or I wanted to develop a business plan for my resume, I personally would prefer to go with a mind and a license and a background that's rich in taking a look at how my behaviors currently are being impacted by my past, and not just marching me forward at least without that knowledge
And awareness. Because what we've got here is 9 signs that you may need a therapist and not a coach. I thought I'd go through these kind of again to compare and contrast. The first one is you spend lots of time in each coaching session venting about negative emotions and stressful situations in your life.
Okay.
That means you probably need a therapist, right? You tend to be rather emotionally brittle and easily set off.
Okay.
I think if you're talking to a coach and you're easily set off, they're probably going to go refer you to somebody anyway. You become defensive or overly sensitive to constructive criticism. 5th, you can't seem to make progress on your issues, and you keep coming back to the same themes that keep you stuck.
Okay, very important. And there's the past. Okay,
That's
if
the
there's
past.
the WTF going on,
Yes.
with the Freud repetition compulsion, then I don't think it's a service to people to start giving them homework assignments that are going to move them forward, because what you're going to usually get back is lack of compliance, number one.
They've got one foot stuck in the past.
Right.
They can't step forward.
And also feeling like a failure because they're not doing what you've asked them to do, so that then the coach becomes aversive to them. They don't want to show up any longer because they're not doing the homework, they're not progressing forward, and so then ultimately they're not going to want to face that person because they're just not moving forward.
You have, is a good one. You have fears or phobias that seem extreme and resistant to change. I mean, like, for example, a real one might be fear of flying, right? A coach isn't going to really help you with that. You can't seem to make progress on your issues and keep coming back to the same. I did that one. You avoid talking about certain issues out of fear, embarrassment, or shame, or poor attention to control.
Okay.
Your coach expresses frustration that you won't properly do homework, as we've just talked about, follow through or speak openly about certain issues.
Yes.
Couple more. You believe you have depression, severe anxiety, or addiction issues. And lastly, you have a strong personal reaction to your coach, negative or positive, which gets in the way of a working relationship.
And that brings me to a really critical aspect of working with anyone, which is working with the transference, because you just described the transference,
Correct.
which
That's
means what we project on another human being. So during our episodes, we talk a lot about the cracked lens of perception and negative core beliefs, so that when we're injured at the causal level, when we're wounded in childhood, and then we have severe reactions to these wounds, we encode these wounds into what I call negative core beliefs. And so if these core beliefs then start becoming activated in the coaching process, and the coach isn't aware and educated to handle transferential issues, it's going to become a problem. And not only will it become a problem to the patient or the client, it'll become a problem to the coach, because they're going to leave frustrated and angry, and maybe their own negative core beliefs will be activated. And so hopefully they're in therapy.
It'll be quite a party.
So they'll end up in therapy.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Right.
So those are signs that you might need a therapist, not a coach. Okay. So next we move on and to address back and forth in terms of here, and we're going to spend a little time in this, on how therapists and coaches differ. Okay. And again, if you've got a coach that worked or didn't and why, or you are a coach and you want to express some thoughts, or a therapist and you want to express some thoughts, get on the couch with Dr. Judy. The phone number is area code 323-843-2826. Or you can write us at info@drjudywtf.com, and we take everything We read everything. We really appreciate folks. We get a lot more subscribing to our YouTube channel because we've been very aggressive in putting all our shows up on YouTube. So we really appreciate all your comments, and we know we owe
Thank
a couple.
you,
We owe a
yes.
couple folks some responses, and know we haven't forgotten about you. And thanks so much, subscribe. It's we're getting a few a day. It's really great. So first here is coaches focus on self-exploration, self-knowledge, professional development, performance enhancement, and better self-management, while a therapist seeks to heal the emotional wounds.
And not only that, there are different kinds of therapists. There are cognitive behavioral therapists who don't necessarily concentrate on emotional wounds. They may concentrate on the cognitive misperceptions of the individual and start there. Then there are behavioral therapists who work on the behavior of individuals. There are all kinds of different theoretical orientations. So not all of them start with the causal model, but I do. I start with the causal model because I have sat in this chair for a long time as a psychologist, and I see that until you dismantle those nasty core beliefs, until you heal through the wounds, you're going to be stuck in the past. And no matter how much you want to march forward with affirmations and I don't know what else is done to march forward, but you can't march forward unless you're in denial of a lot of painful feelings that haven't been
Addressed.
Completed, addressed and completed. As Freud says, finish your emotional business.
I mean, you could say all day long and yell and scream your head off, "Hey, I'm thrilled and look and feel wonderful weighing 150 pounds, and you weigh 250 pounds." The first thing your brain is going to say is, "Are you out of your flippin' mind? Put the donut down." And you're not going to make it, and you're just going to get resistance all over the place. So there's a difference. There's a huge difference.
And I think on the very, very bad end of coaching, we have people who just hang a shingle and say, "Life coach," okay? And so, what are your qualifications? Well,
I have a shingle up.
I have
It says
business
life.
cards.
I have business
I have
cards.
a shingle that says I'm a life coach. Therefore, I'm self-defined as a life coach. So please do bother to ask the person, where were you educated? How do you approach things? What's your model for moving me forward? Have you had therapy? Have you learned some basic therapeutic skills? So these are some of the questions that you may want to ask your life coach, and then have the person absolutely define their scope of practice.
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I had a life coach. I've tried it and had a couple that have been amazing. One of the first ones I tried, she just couldn't get it through her head, and it was a lady, that I was self-employed. She couldn't. There was a massive disconnect, and she just got so frustrated that
What did she
she'd ask
want you to
questions.
be?
An employee,
Well,
where I
okay.
punch a clock and I get a paycheck, and
What was in it for her, for you to be an employee? I don't get it. But
she didn't understand, because I guess she was an employee and didn't understand the self-employed mentality, and it was just this gigantic disconnect. And I just went, "Oh my word, this isn't working." So I bailed.
Okay, so here's what I've noticed. I've done a little research on life coaching, and so if you find that your life coach is just a walking book of quotations.
Cliche phrases.
Cliches. Mr. or Miss Cliche, beware. Maybe walk away. I've never seen more quotes than from the mouth of life coaches. It's almost like that's what they live on. They build their entire persona on other people's quotes. And so unless there's a real depth to their understanding of that quote, and they're able to then move the person forward using the quote as a cue to explore more, I think that should be a really big red flag if you see a bunch of quotes in a
on their website.
on the website.
Yeah.
Okay. Secondly,
on the website.
If they go overboard, I'm very spiritual. I've got to say I have a strong belief in higher power, and I respect that. And a lot of coaches are spiritual coaches, and I respect that. However, when they refer too much to everything is karma and everything is higher power, and without the theoretical grounding of, look, this is the way the mind works, this is how behaviors work, without some sort of a balance there, then I think that's another red flag, when they're just, again, into such spiritual lingo, and you can always hear the lingo, reverberating through their language.
So you're saying they're kind of acting spiritual, but they're not being spiritual.
I don't know whether they're being or not, but if they're just a bunch of spiritual, if there's just a bunch of spiritual lingo going on, a lot of quotations going on, if they have a Buddha in the front lawn, I mean, I'm being a little facetious here, but if you just, see Hindu statues, Buddha statues, all kinds of statues and, all kinds of symbols, and they're just kind of trying to please everyone. I don't know. What do you think, Walt? Am I being unfair? Please. Interject.
You're obviously it's being funny, but I agree with you. And if there's no depth, if you will, then it's tough. I mean,
Yes.
it's not. There's no connection. And the one thing that our show's about is healing human disconnect.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Okay.
So coaching takes clients to the highest levels of performance and life satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
Therapy seeks to bring clients from a dysfunctional place to a healthy, functional level.
Thank you.
Sure. Coaching rarely asks about your childhood or family life, again, about your past. Therapy continually explores early childhood, family, and relationship issues. That's what we try and do in this show, right? Coaching uses terms, and again, you did this, backlogs, blockages, and obstructions to donate what needs to be removed.
Donate.
Denote.
Donate.
Donate. Denote.
I didn't know they donate too.
They do.
Okay.
Therapy uses terms psychology and describes patients' issues.
Okay.
Here's one. This is a big one, as we've talked about. Coaches focus more on the present and the future. Therapy focuses more on the past and the present, because you have to deal with your past and your present for you to have a future, in our view here, especially when you follow the mind map example, right?
So a good coach, in my opinion, is educated, knows their limitations, is ethical, presents a treatment plan to the individual, understands some basic psychology so that the person can refer out if they detect personality disorders, severe mood disorders. To me, that is a good life coach. And same with a therapist, psychologist. A good therapist is somebody who has a treatment plan, has an education, is responsible to their board, has no major licensing issues that appear on their bad marks against them, is what I want to say.
But again,
okay?
you can do your homework in terms of a licensure and complaints and such. And the licensed therapist, you can't do it all with a coach.
Right. You can't go to a board and
there's no accountability.
No, there is no accountability.
No accountability.
And a good therapist is somebody who genuinely takes an interest in making that connection with you, and shows up on time. Okay, gives you the full, pretty much 50 some odd minutes of their time, doesn't cut it short to 40 or 45 minutes. I think it's atrocious to see my own professionals cutting their sessions down to 40, 45 minutes and charging the big bucks. I'm not a fan
40 minutes is a little short.
of doing something like that, unless they're charging only for 40 minutes of their time. But don't say that it's an hour long and then give the person only 45 minutes. I don't think that's fair. Also, please do inquire about fees. That's very important. So life coaches have a variety of different fees attached to their services, anywhere from, I researched this myself, I think anywhere from about $40 an hour on up to could be $500, even $1,000 an hour. Right.
I mean, the extreme in terms of that regard is a guy by the name Tony Robbins.
Sure.
At his peak, when he was out there just killing it with his seminars and had his books and whatnot. And he was pulling $80 million. One year he made $80 million. I mean, that's phenomenal.
And I'm sure a lot of people have benefited from his wisdom. And
Yes.
he's probably a very fine life coach, powerful,
Yes.
and making a difference on the planet in whatever way he does it.
Another one that's a very popular that they mention and stuff is John Gray.
Okay.
Men are from Venus and men are from.
No, he's
women,
actually a,
and,
a
but
psychologist.
he's a
He's not
psychologist, but
a
he's
life
done
coach.
coaching. He's done both.
Okay,
That's my
but
point.
see,
He crossed.
we can
he
go
crossed,
the other way.
He crossed both. Yeah.
Right, so-
Men are from Mars. Women are from Venus.
Right. So if you have a license, then you get to go
Yes.
into the past and in the future. You've got yourself covered. That's the difference. So John Gray is free to coach, free to be a psychologist, because he has the theoretical knowledge to understand psychopathology.
Is that kind of like your book that's going to be out soon? Called Healing Human Disconnect
It's
Be the Cause?
done. It's done.
Yes.
I just gave every bit of it to my editor. Cover check done. Back cover check done.
Yes.
Everything done. And so it will be uploaded hopefully tonight, tomorrow.
Yeah,
Monday,
within the
Tuesday.
next. I mean, in mere days and hours.
Yep.
The
And
book
there it
is
is.
finally finished.
I
You know
wasn't
what?
just blowing smoke, was I, Walt? So I'm really excited. It's called "Be the Cause: Healing Human Disconnect." That is the title of the book, and it is a book that encompasses my life work, starting from 2001 when I had a conversation about the isms and the schisms of the human race, and inspiring me to create a mind map to heal global disconnect, and I brought it down to healing human disconnect, and so. This chapter of my life is done, although it'll never be done because I'm always doing treatment. And the Psychological Healing Center is really growing in leaps and bounds. We have currently 4 interns, psych assistants working with patients. We work on a sliding scale basis as well. We have a lot of people who opt for Skype or phone therapy, and thank you for the people out there who I'm working with and are working with me and found us on the show on Dr. Judy WTF, and I'm just proud to say that that we're out there and that people
We're making a difference.
are wanting
Yeah.
this type of service. I think what I'm hearing most is people want a plan. They want to understand how to decode their past and recode the future. They want a plan that is time limited. So within 10 sessions, I think we give people a very strong psychoeducational mind map journey from the past through the chaos of the present and recoding them into health and well-being. So I'm really excited, and I'm hoping that I hear from you. Those of you who purchased the book, I'd love to get comments from you. And so for those of you who love what we do and love what we say, please tweet it out. I would really appreciate
Get the word out.
it.
I
and
mean-
share it with your Facebook friends and just share it. And and pay
So
it
you
forward.
can go on YouTube and like us on subscribe and you'll get more shows. You can go on Facebook and put a comment. Facebook and Twitter at Dr. Judy WTF. And one of the great things that Dr. Judy added to the book is at the end of all the different chapters is the section Think Like a Shrink. So it really is sort of a book to help you not only as you read it, but subsequently and apply what you've learned so that it really is something that you can go back to and think, oh my gosh, I remember that. Think like a shrink. I think it's really cool.
Because ultimately I want people to learn how to think like a shrink, because it's not enough that I'm thinking like a shrink. It's important that you understand how you're being triggered and why you're in defense mode and how to get out of that. So after each panel, and I divide the book into 9 panels, I have a section that summarizes all the points of the panels. And I think it's really easy to grasp.
Or you
that
can
way.
actually go on to drjudywtf.com, and under resources, there's actually a 1-page sort of summary of what all the 9 panels are. So if you really want to delve into it, on one page and get the Cliff Notes version, and then get the book, and that'll help you out, then you can do that as well.
Actually,
in your
we've
resources.
yet to post all the summaries in more detail, but that's coming up next week because everybody was on the book project.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we've got more stuff to upload onto the website. There's lots of blogging on the website, so please check that out. And also, there's a YouTube video of me on, I think it was Huffington Post, on
Yes.
plastic surgery.
Yes.
So check that out.
And we did a show on that as well.
Right.
Radio show.
Right.
And now that Dr. Judy's finished her book, we're going to be blogging more, not only on her site, but it's going to be on the UBN radio site as well. They're starting blogging as well.
Right.
So that'll help get the word out
Right.
as well. So if you get the book, you can just write info@drjudywtf.com and say, hey, got the book, love chapter or panel 8 or whatever. and
Or stuck in panel number, whatever.
Yes, we love your comments. Getting back to coaching and therapists. Oh, by the way, if you want to listen to the show, you can pull us on Stitcher, iTunes, Speaker, and of course here at ubnradio.com. Now that the book again is finished, we're going to be taking all of the shows and correlating them and put them on the website and kind of have a little index of the different topics that we've discussed.
Right.
And we're always open for more.
Absolutely. And it is available in ebook format,
Yes.
Kindle version, and also soft cover
Paperback?
paperback.
Oh,
version.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, whatever you want to read it, and it's not too late to give them as Christmas presents under the tree. And the paperback will even fit in a stocking.
Huh. If your stocking is 6 by 9.
Now, coaching versus therapy. So getting back to that. Coaching advances the client's potential. Again, forward, right? Therapy cures the, quote-unquote, cures the patient. Coaching is used by people who already are successful and succeeding, but want to succeed even more and at a faster rate. Take what you've done and build upon it, right? Therapy is used by people whose lives are not working. And that's a big difference. I mean, if it's not really happening for you, a coach isn't going to make it happen, because if it's not, it can't, unfortunately. Coaching focuses more on thoughts and behavior and how a client acts and thinks about things. Therapy focuses more on emotions and how the client feels about things. This is a big one. Coaching comes out of the human potential movement and the performance world. Therapy has its roots in the medical model. Coaching seeks to bring more power, control, and joy to the client, and therapy seeks to remove the client's pain. So if you've got pain, you don't want to go to a coach. You might need a doctor anyway, right?
Like an MD.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Coaching asks, what's next? Therapy asks, why or how come? Again, looking at the foundational aspect of it. Coaching helps clients design their lives. And again, the only way you can design your life is if you know what you want. Because if you don't know what you want, you're not going to get it, right? Therapy resolves issues. I've got just one more here that I want to touch on. Coaching takes the client from where they are and helps them move forward. Therapy examines unfinished emotional business from all stages of life.
And so they can go hand in hand. A good therapist who does his or her job can then theoretically refer their patient to an excellent life coach to move the person forward. And so I think that if there's a symbiotic relationship between the two professions, it can really work beautifully, because the therapist can do the job of the past, and then the life coach could do things that usually therapists don't like to do. They don't like to give patients homework for the most part, not all of them, but we as therapists, we're more interested in the psychodynamics of the person, and we're not as keen on life planning and structuring and putting together a plan for, let's say, a business plan for them to be successful. I think that kind of work might very well be better
For a coach.
done in a coach's office. Yeah.
Is there a typical patient, like for real quick, if it comes to mind that, hey, a patient comes in and has a challenge with us and such, and through the mind map process and 10 sessions or plus or minus, you're able to really make an impact? Anything come to mind?
If there is certain patients, I think
Yeah.
today I saw 9 people, so my mind is
I know it's a blur.
overwhelmed.
You're right now.
See,
You're
which one?
you're
Let's see.
you're I know you're pretty booked.
I'm pretty booked.
Yeah.
I think I'm officially now waiting list. So
I'm sorry.
but that's okay. No, I mean,
And again, all the therapists that are at the Psychological Healing Center, again, they all have malpractice insurance, and they
Right.
all are being licensed, and
Right.
so they're not coached. They're not a coach. They're doing the real deal, the real therapy. And if you, again, phone therapy, which is a lot of what coaching does, but Dr. Judy does that as well, and through Skype. And offices are in Beverly Hills and Sherman Oaks here in the Southern California, Los Angeles area.
I think I learned my lesson on not hiring coaches. I don't mind referring to them, but I will not hire coaches. First of all, patients have complained to me that they're too advicey. Okay, so one thing that after a sophisticated patient or client learns is that when you tell people to do what to do, or you advise them, they may not take too well to that kind of a treatment plan. And also after having a more in-depth knowledge, if the life coach then doesn't have that in-depth knowledge, they may experience that person as very shallow. So it just depends. And then there are this is not to take away from some really brilliant people like Tony Robbins and some excellent coaches out there who move people from having jobs that basically just function to make a living, and then take them up the scale of success to a place where they never could have gotten without a really, really strong life coach. So again, buyer beware, whether it's with a psychologist or MFT or LCSW or a psychiatrist or an MD or a life coach. Please do your research. Most people are pretty transparent. You can find them on Yelp and see what other people have to say about them.
I mean, if you really want to
then
read
make
about
up
what
your
Dr.
mind.
Judy, she's on Yelp, and the reviews are pretty amazing. Another person who has really impacted my life for a long time is John Maxwell. He was a pastor in San Diego, and he subsequently moved to Atlanta. But he's done a lot on leadership. He's written a lot of books on leadership, the qualities of leadership, and his stuff's just amazing. But again, he's a pastor, but along the lines of a coach. That he's had a flock and a church, and he does consulting with businesses and Fortune 500 companies now, and writes books, and he's very approachable and very real, and his stuff's pretty practical.
Yeah. So just do your homework, and I think you'll have your answers. And also check the fees of people, because sometimes life coaches, you think you're saving money on the life coach, but sometimes they charge as much, if not more, than a licensed practitioner.
So that really is our show in Comparing and Contrast. Hope you've enjoyed it. And now we're going to our segment that we do here in Dr. Judy WTF called Shrink That Tune, where we're going to take a popular song, and this one's really popular, and I'm going to read the lyrics, and Dr. Judy is going to interpret the song from her mind map and psychological perspective. And there's a song that's just out called Hello by Adele. So I'm going to read the lyrics, and we're going to have some fun with this one. Hello, it's me. I was wondering if after all these years you'd like to meet, to go over everything, to say that's time supposed to heal, yeah, but I ain't done much healing.
So this person is obviously grieving the past, and she's making it known that, hey, hello, I'm still here. I'm not dead, even though we're not together. I'm not dead, and so there's a sense in her that she'd like to meet and maybe go through everything and maybe even mend things. And she's not healed because apparently whatever happened between them opened up wounds in her, and she's still suffering from these wounds.
Maybe she needs closure.
Or she needs closure.
Yeah.
But if the person's not there, then the person doesn't care enough to give her closure. So, she's already barking up the wrong tree here. But, let's go on. Let's see what else she says.
Hello? Can you hear me? I'm in California dreaming about who we used to be. When we were younger and free, I've forgotten how it felt before the world fell at our feet.
So she's reminiscing about the past, the dreaming part, the California ideal, who we used to be, probably in a good place maybe for a moment at the time, and then everything seemed to fall apart. And I do a lot of work with couples, and people usually get together as couples because the wounded and the wounded attract each other's wounds, and then it ends up in chaos and a blowout. And so here's her blowout. Now they're broken up. So
right,
the wounds definitely detonated both of these people.
And as we say here in the show, do not explode or implode, but give us a call and unload. There's such a difference between us and a million miles. Hello from the other side. I must have called 1,000 times to tell you I'm sorry for everything that I've done. But when I call, you never seem to be home.
So here she is, pining and yearning for this partner that is a ghost at this point and has no interest in turning back and hearing anything she has to say, because she's calling and calling. And I think the no answer is kind of indicative that this other that she's pining for is gone.
Hello from the outside. At least
outside, thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry.
hello from the outside. At least I can say that I've tried to tell you I'm sorry for breaking your heart, but it doesn't matter. It clearly doesn't tear you apart anymore. It doesn't tear you apart anymore.
So, whether it tears the other person apart or not, what typically happens is people move on, and sometimes they move on in still an injured form, and then they will just replicate that horrible relationship with the other. But she has a fantasy that this person has moved on, is having a great life. People who move on without healing usually don't end up having really great lives. And so still continue their pattern of lying or cheating, or they just do it with a new partner.
Maybe she's just looking at him on Facebook and he just looks like he's having a great life.
Yeah, we always show up with the best of our best, don't
absolutely.
they? Those moments, right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Hello, how are you? It's so typical of me to talk about myself. I'm sorry. I hope that you're well, but did you ever make it out of that town where nothing ever happened?
Well, she wants to apologize, but you can't apologize to somebody that's not present. Did you ever make it out of that town where nothing ever happened? Do you have an idea of what she's saying there? It's not really jiving with me, except
maybe he was complaining about where he was, and that might be part of the reason why they broke up, is because he got the heck out of Dodge.
Okay, or maybe this has to do with something that was ineffectual between them. That nothing was happening between them.
It's no secret that both of us are running out of time. So hello from the other side. I must have called 1,000 times to tell you I'm sorry for everything that I've done, but when I call, you never seem to be home.
Right, so she's stuck and she's pining, and he's not there to listen, and she wants to repair, and he don't care.
He don't care.
Yeah.
Hello from the outside. Again, she's like her nose pressed against the glass. At least I can say that I've tried to tell you I'm sorry for breaking your heart, but it doesn't matter. It clearly doesn't tear you apart anymore. Hello from the other side. I must have called 1,000 times to tell you I'm sorry for everything I've done, but when I call, you never seem to be home. And then lastly, of course, hello from the outside. At least I can say I've tried to tell you I'm sorry for breaking your heart, but it doesn't matter. It clearly doesn't tear you apart anymore.
You know, in an ideal world, what people do is they don't leave each other. They work it through with the partner if it's mendable. And so, you know, what's sad about this is she really did want to try. She did want to mend, and she still wants to mend. But for whatever reason, of course, it takes two people to want that mending to be. And I'm a big fan of not disconnecting unless absolutely possible. You don't leave a good person, because you leave a good person and then you end up with another person with a new set of problems. So the grass is not always greener on the other side. Of course, if there are severe issues there, then you have to leave deal breakers. But who knows what she was thinking or experiencing. I'd love to interview her, though.
Well, maybe they were just too young.
Or maybe who knows? Okay, yeah. But see, look, here's a person who sounds like she hasn't recovered. She's living in a state of grief. So who should she see, Walt? A life coach or a psychotherapist?
Oh, goodness. I think she should see a psychotherapist.
Hopefully,
yep.
Right?
Yes,
what's a life coach going to do for her but march her into the future without helping her complete the past? And then what's going to happen out of that is she's going to find the same kind of person, and maybe those character flaws will not show up for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, but there they will be, because they will never have been worked through. So unless you complete the past, it'll visit your future.
And maybe she'll make another 1,000 phone calls.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. That is our Shrink That Tune of the song Hello by Adele. And you can pull our show at Stitcher, iTunes, Speaker, and of course here at UBN Radio Network. This has been drjudywtf.com. And if you want to write us for a song that you'd love to have us shrink, you can write us at info@drjudywtf.com.
And I've had a couple of requests from patients, and we will get to
them.
Good. Sometimes we don't do them right away because we're waiting for a theme that's appropriately fitting the song that you asked for. So that's why we're not shrinking your tune today.
Coming attractions.
Yes.
And we're going to close out with a song. And again, this is Walt Lusk, your host, and Dr. Judy Rosenberg. So until next time, God bless everybody.
Hello, it's me. I was wondering if after all these years you'd like to meet to go over everything. They say the time's supposed to heal ya, but I ain't done much healing. Hello, can you hear me? I'm in California dreaming about who we used to be when we were younger and free. I've forgotten how it felt before the world fell at our feet. There's such a difference between us and a million miles. Hello from the other side. I must have called 1,000 times to tell you I'm sorry for everything that I've done. When I call, you never seem to be home. Hello from the outside. At least I can say that I tried to tell you I'm sorry for breaking your heart, but it don't matter. Clearly doesn't tear you apart anymore. Hello, how are you? It's so typical of me to talk about myself, I'm sorry. I hope that you're well. Did you ever make it out of that town when nothing ever happened? It's no secret that the both of us are running out of time.